Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Hero Movie Podcast, your greatest source of superhero movie discussion in the multiverse. I am your host, Adam Portrais, and I'm joined by Sean Keenan.
Heidi also has 24 different personalities.
And of course, Bruce Leslie.
I'm a prickly pear and an English governess and a little kid and a fashion designer, and I think you guys get what I'm going for here.
We all knew you were an English governess. We knew that from the moment that we met you. We walked in, and we were just like, that guy. So at least some sort of heiress, if nothing else, if not a governess. We are here, everybody, this week to talk about Split, the newest movie from M Night Shyamalan. There's a sequel to it coming out in not too awful long. They just put a trailer out for it. But what I want to do is ahead of time, ahead of all of this, because this is quite a spoilerific thing. Now, we go into spoilers on all of our programs here. But this is one in particular that I say that if you don't want things ruined for you, and I don't think that you should, just go watch the movie, then come back to this episode. I think we'll have a lot to talk about. I think there'll be some very interesting things. But at the end of that movie, you might go, oh, wow, this is a lot different than I had thought.
Let me give my 2 bits here,
Please.
If I could, Adam. So Bruce was talking about this, when was it, last year, 2 years ago?
Yeah, whenever it came out.
And Bruce knows me well enough to know that it's going to take an act of Congress for me to go see an M Night Shyamalan movie at this point, at the point of this movie being released, because I'd been burned by him too many times. And Bruce is like, Sean, you should really see this movie. And I said, there's no way. I'm not doing it. And he's like, you should see it. I'm telling you, you should see it. And he ended up telling me the spoiler to it, the big gigantic reveal to it. And I immediately had to go and watch it. But so you should listen to the podcast if you don't care, and maybe that makes you want to see the movie anyway, or just hold off, like Adam said. But you kind of, for those of you who are like, M Night Shyamalan movie, no thank you, stick around, because we have a lot to talk about with this.
I think as much as we're going to talk about the movie, I think we're going to talk a good fair bit about Shyamalan himself and like the trajectory of his career and whatnot, and where things have been, where things are, and where things are going.
And I think this should be the final spoiler warning. Like, even if you haven't seen the movie, I think the cat's out of the bag. I think people understand where this movie stands and why we're covering it here. But if for some reason you're totally confused by why we're talking about it and you think you might be interested in seeing this movie, you need to just go ahead and stop listening now, because there's no way that I can even get through the comic book connection without explaining the twist in Split.
Right.
And sometimes even letting people know there's a twist is a spoiler in and of itself, but it's Shyamalan.
I was about to say, it's a Shyamalan movie, so at this point, it's just like, will they have credits at the end? You know, it's like, yeah, it's pretty sure that's going to happen.
Adam, you know what would be perfect if you dropped that old spoiler warning that you used to do like 5 years ago?
Spoiler.
Well, we do want to thank everybody, though, that goes over to patreon.com/HMP and helps support this show. We're doing some things a little bit different for Patreon people this month and going on forward, I think, a little bit. Sean, explain to them what we got a little bit.
So, one of the things that's been driving me nuts over the past couple months is just, for people who are kind enough to contribute to the show, we give them what Adam calls bonus content. And that bonus content is generally has been, basically, it sounds like a phone conversation that Adam and Bruce and I have, which maybe that seems great to you, but it for me, I wouldn't. I felt bad that's like I didn't feel great about people giving us money so that they could listen to a bloody phone conversation between the three of us. And so we came up with a concept where we are going to have 3 topics that we talk about each week, and the show's gonna run about 20 minutes and it can be almost about anything, but it's us, so it's tangentially related to comic books and comic book movies.
Nerddom, that kind of stuff.
So it's more of a show. It's like a show within a show, and it's 20 minutes. And Adam will come up with a topic, I come up with a topic, and Bruce comes up with a topic, And like even today, it's the first time we were trying this, and we already went over 20 minutes. So, it's just something else from us that's a little more geared towards, hey, people are actually listening to this. Let's make it a little more interesting.
There's some straight good
so that's
content.
That's what this is.
And but yeah, so Patreon people that are out there, we hope you listen to this new thing. Throw us a couple of topics if you'd like us to talk about things. We're more than happy to talk about
try to
those
come
as
up with a name for it. We just still don't have a name for it. Like the working title I had was The 20, but that's so stupid. So come up with something.
Yeah, I voted for HBO's half-hour comedy hour, but I got overturned on that one.
He tried so hard. He goes, "Can we call it Game of Thrones?" And we're like, "Bruce, that's not even."
But people I've got good market research that say people respond well to that name.
They Google it a whole bunch. So they know exactly what's going on. Don't have to worry about that. But again, that is exclusive to the people that go over to patreon.com/HMP and help this program, man. And we have 39 patrons that are all vying for that, man. We really appreciate it. And I didn't notice this until just now. But we had somebody drop up to the $40 level here. Oh, my goodness. I didn't realize this.
And I am very, very glad that we're giving them more content.
Indeed. So it's not come at a better time, I'll tell you that. So I'm going to have to get on this and get Sharice. I'm horrible with saying, reading. You guys know that.
Good speaking.
Sirish Panta, Panta.
Well, I think you got Panta right.
All right, Sirish.
Sirish Panta.
Sirish Panta.
Yeah, it's Sirish Panta.
Sirish, shoot us an email here, buddy, and we'll hook you up with some stuff. But we'd like to thank him, Matt, Schnapp, Alex, Peter, Tim, and Robert, and RocketFace for all coming in at the executive producer level, and everybody else that came under that. Again, thank you guys all, and we're going to be producing some more content for you and getting you better quality things, because that's what we do over here at HMP, everybody. So,
and your new name, by the way, for this guy.
Oh yes.
His name is the Dirty Whale.
Ooh, the Dirty Whale.
It.
Oh, and by the way, just so you can, for everyone that's gotten a nickname, if you ever, write in or anything else like that, just let us know what the nickname is, and if you've forgotten it, we'll give you another one. Except for RocketFace.
Yeah,
you're keeping yours.
I've got Sonic Spork in a holster waiting to pull it out.
Listen, I don't know what you do on the weekends, but all right. So let's get into it, boys. Here is the trailer for Split.
Hey, pardon me, sir. I think you have the wrong car. What are we doing here? What the hell is going on?
I was sent to get you for a reason.
There's a flower on the pillows, a flower in the bathroom. Like, we're important.
The only chance we have is if all three of us go crazy on this guy.
Who is that? Maybe she can help us.
Don't worry. He's not allowed to touch you. He knows what you're here for. He listens to me. My name's Hedwig.
How old are you?
9.
I've never seen a case like this before. 23 identities live in Kevin's body.
Who are you? Help me get out of here, Hedwig.
You trying to trick me? I'll tell on you. Aren't you the clever one?
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body chemistry with their thoughts.
Someone's coming for you.
Who's coming?
The beast.
There's a man here. He abducted us and he's going to kill me. We're meant for something. Something horrible.
The world will understand now. The beast is real. He's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to you.
Alrighty, that was the trailer for Split from 2016. Here's the IMDb plotline. As we know, IMDb always 100% correct in everything they say and or do. 3 girls are kidnapped by a man diagnosed with 23 distinct personalities. They must try to escape before the apparent emergence of a frightful new 24th. This is written and directed by M Night Shyamalan, starring James McAvoy, Anya Taylor-Joy, Haley Lou Richardson, Jessica Sola, and Betty Buckley from Preacher, no less. Well, we'll get into it because this is going to be pretty interesting because this is not directly a comic book, but we got to see what the man comes up with.
It's time for Bruce's Comic Book Connection.
Bruce, what do you got?
Something we learned from the recent Teen Titans Go to the Movies movie is that a superhero is meaningless without a good villain. Probably the most recognizable hero-villain combination in all of comics is Superman and Lex Luthor. Now, Superman, of course, is super strong and bulletproof and can fly, and he can pull the S off his chest and throw it to wrap up villains. Now, on the other hand, Lex Luthor is bald. Do you smell what I'm stepping in here? I don't know. I'll give you another illustration. Batman is classically fighting against the machinations of the Joker, Riddler, and Penguin. Batman is a ruthless billionaire in peak physical fitness with an endless arsenal of high-tech vehicles and weapons supported by the Gotham City Police Department and a remarkably spry butler. The Joker and Riddler are skinny dudes who dress funny, while the Penguin's favorite form of locomotion is waddling. Now, Spider-Man is a superhero with the boundless energy of youth, super strength, agility, spider sense, and the ability to stick to walls. Meanwhile, Norman Osborn is a middle-aged, single father suffering from both substance abuse and emotional instability. What I'm getting at here is that in the initial pairings, the iconic villains were woefully outmatched by their counterpart heroes. As comic book fans, we spent about 50 years looking the other way and letting this slide, despite the fact that the villains had far more in common with most of the readers than the heroes ever would or could. Then, thanks to a little thing called the late 80s, early 90s, people realized that they weren't happy with nacho-flavored Doritos. Nay, they demanded extreme nacho cheese Doritos. Next thing you know, everybody was wearing their baseball caps backwards, and products as varied as handheld vacuum cleaners and retirement portfolios were getting the extreme treatment. These weakling, milquetoast, workaday villains were no exception to the trend, and comic book heroes began to get extreme villains that were actually more powerful than they were. The first to receive an extreme foe was Spider-Man, when in 1988, the alien symbiote bonded with the totally buff Eddie Brock and gave the Marvel Universe its first shot of Venom. Superman wasn't far behind when someone at DC finally came down from the decade-long cocaine buzz and realized Superman beating up an aging, bald politician and businessman might get a little stale. And in 1992, the totally extreme alien known as Doomsday started kicking some Justice League butt. Batman was next up when having a vigilante punch Danny DeVito in the face just stopped making sense. So they had Bane show up and snap the Dark Knight like a twig. You see, comic books learn something from video games. You can't just keep fighting the same boss over and over again. The stakes have to be raised and the competition needs to grow tougher. Well, the world of Unbreakable consciously tries to follow comic book trends. Dunn, or Unbreakable as I choose to call him, started off with a simpler challenge. Mr. Glass, a villain whose superpower is literally that his bones broke really easily. This is kind of like Glass Joe from Punch-Out, you know? But after a lot of years passed, it was time to give Unbreakable a worthy opponent, one that might even be stronger than he is. So, in true comic book form, Split introduced us to the Horde, and kind of made some people say, oh yeah, that was a movie back then, wasn't it? Now the question is, when the trilogy is completed with the January movie Glass, which trope will they pursue? Will Mr. Glass prove that brains really are the more fearsome weapon rather than brawn? Will the villains team up to take down the hero, much like the villains in the 1966 Batman movie? Will Mr. Glass pull the classic Dr. Doom maneuver and stop the Horde because he refuses to allow anyone other than himself to kill Unbreakable? I don't know. I suppose only time will tell, but I do have a sneaking suspicion that it will involve a twist that some people say is awesome while others claim they saw it coming from a mile away.
I hate to be the one to go ahead and break this spoiler news to you, but yeah, it comes out in January, but I got a little bit of pre-hand knowledge as to what's going to happen. Ewoks.
I saw that coming from a mile away. I wasn't surprised.
Yeah.
You know, I remembered, I was thinking that was going to happen, and then I forgot about it, and then at the end I remembered.
That's one of those things that you're like, of course, I knew that, but
in the first draft, they were Wookiees, and then he made them Ewoks before it. You know,
you got to make him cuter. Those are the rules that are involved.
So, do you guys mind if I start?
Please.
I love Split, and Bruce, thank you so much for making me watch this movie. This is the third time I've seen it since you said, hey, you should see Split.
It was the third time for me too.
And I got to tell you, this movie is terrific. It really is. And it's one of those movies where, you know, you don't expect a whole lot out of it. And it's rewarding to watch it on multiple views also. 'Cause you're like, oh, okay. Yep. Okay. So that's how that pieced together, and I didn't catch that at the time. You know, there's stuff like that. But just on a general basis, what I want to talk about, and it's kind of a crackpot theory, which I know this is the wrong show for that, but I want to bring this up, which is that M Night Shyamalan, I have a crackpot theory that I think the reason why people are just so like the amount of anger towards M Night Shyamalan movies reached a crescendo a bunch of years ago now. I mean, it really did manifest itself with the Last Airbender, because he basically destroyed a franchise with that movie.
Yeah.
But I don't know how much of that is his fault. There seems like there's a whole bunch of studio intervention in that one. But the reason why the general public, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, and is the reason why there's so much vitriol thrown at him is because, you know, when he comes out of the gate, he comes out with The Sixth Sense, and that is just a phenomenon. Like
technically his second film, but the first one to really hit. But just clarifying.
Right. I mean, his first movie is a direct-to-video movie.
Nobody saw.
You know, but then The Sixth Sense hits, and it is a phenomenon, and it's massive, and it's great. And then the second movie comes out, Unbreakable, which is my favorite M. Night Shyamalan movie. And that is equally, in my opinion, it's better than The Sixth Sense, because I would think that because it's more my subject matter, you know?
Yeah.
And I just really, really loved Unbreakable. And so in my head at the time, I can remember thinking to myself, man, we are really going to reap the rewards of having this guy who's a writer-director, writing and directing all these movies, and they're great. Like, you know, because usually that sophomore effort is the one where, like, there's the dip in quality of movie, and then the next one comes out and it's great. But that is not the case with this guy. The first, you know, Sixth Sense comes out and it's great, and then Unbreakable comes out, and to me, it's even better. But then Signs comes out and it's a little less than, and then The Village comes out and that's even less than that. And he always wants to make a twist, and he always has the same, you know, that same thing happening in each of his movies, and it gets less rewarding every time when you know that M. Night Shyamalan is going to have a massive twist in his movies. And to me, it was just it was like, oh man, I was so wrong about this guy. Like, how could I be so wrong about these movies? You know, The Lady in the Water comes out, it's even worse than everything else that he's done, and it just kept happening to the point where I had written him off, you know, and with good reason. You know, you get bit by that snake enough times, you're not going to pick up that snake anymore.
Yeah. Were you one of the poor few that actually did what I did, and we reviewed it over on the Film Find, After Earth? Woo!
Yeah, I was going to say you mercifully left that off of his...
Let me tell you, you never, like, as much as you look at the other Shyamalan films and you just go, I don't like this is no good. After Earth will make you just go, like, this guy should be thrown in Hollywood jail forever. And he kind of was a little bit.
And strangely enough, with After Earth, they put his name in like the smallest print that the guild would allow.
They would not
really
advertise. They would
back.
not advertise his name in the movie whatsoever because they knew people would not go to see it.
Right.
Like that was the problem.
And, I didn't even realize this until this viewing, my third viewing. This is a Blumhouse movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is his second Blumhouse movie, actually.
It's what?
This is his second Blumhouse movie. So really, 2015 was the year that M Night Shyamalan really kind of turned everything around.
Was that when The Visitors came out?
Yeah, The Visit. Yeah. So The Visit. So he got to a point in his career where After Earth cost a ridiculous amount of money, and it absolutely bombed at the theater. As well it should have. It was garbage. So this is in a, dude, no one wants to give me money because I'm not a bankable name anymore. Like we said, they took his name off of all the advertising so people wouldn't shy away from it, and they still did. So at this point, what Jason Blum does, and what I would love to just have lunch with this guy and just talk his ear off because I find everything he does very, very fascinating. He goes, okay, here's what it is. I'm going to give you $10 million. It may have been less than $10 million for The Visit. It may have been like 6 to 9, but under 10. And say, this is what you have. That's all you get. Do what you can and make the best possible film that you can. And I know that you know this, Sean. A lot of times in production, throwing more money at your problem does not make your problem go away.
Right.
Sometimes
it's pretty rare. It's pretty rare when you have that Jaws thing happen where, look, we need more money. Yeah, sure. Here's some more money. Please make one of the greatest movies of all time. That's just not the way it works.
It's usually but sometimes the more restrictions that you have on, the better that you are because it gets you back to that kind of old school, you're making movies by yourself or with friends or whatever, and you've got to use your ingenuity to make a good movie because you don't have the money, right? So The Visit comes out, and it's a smash hit. It does really, really well for that. I don't know what it kind of grossed total off the top of my head, but it did pretty darn well. And then at that point, they were like, okay, you can do what you want. I think they gave him $10 million for this movie and said, again, you get full creative freedom. You can do whatever you want. And all they're going to do, James Blum just goes and says, all right, we'll probably spend another $10 million to $15 million on advertising and all that kind of jazz. So really, all they need to make is around $20 to $30 million. And even if you stink, you'll probably make that. Even their latest movie, Truth or Dare, which was garbage, it didn't cost anything for them to make. That movie's profitable despite everyone hating it and few people going to it. That's the Blumhouse method.
Every Halloween, some cable channel will pay to show it a couple of times.
Of course, and they'll make enough money on Netflix and all that other crap.
Can I interject a little movie business stuff that may or may not blow your mind? But Unbreakable was a Disney film.
Yes,
Touchstone,
all under the Touchstone.
That blows me away. I didn't know.
Touchstone was a Disney subsidiary, and Unbreakable was a Disney film. So Glass is going to be a joint production between Disney and Blumhouse.
Wow.
Now, see, that I didn't know. I didn't think about that. That, but yeah, that kind of makes sense. I promise you, they won't give more than $20 million. Well, it depends on. Here's the problem with this though, and I don't have any information on this, and maybe someone does.
They're going to have to have more than $20 million just because.
Well,
that's precisely the avenue I was going down.
I'll speak to that in a minute because I know exactly what's going to happen with that. But go ahead, and I'll chime in with that later.
That was precisely the avenue I was going down. Bruce, is you've got two gigantic stars, and there's not that McAvoy's not a star because he certainly is, and but you can. James McAvoy seems like a guy that you could just be like, hey man, it's for the art, and he goes, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. Sam Jackson is notorious for pay me, and Lord knows Bruce Willis is too. So, Sean, you think you got an idea, or is there a back end thing you think?
Here's the way that movies work, right? You can make a movie for $10 million, and it's usually anywhere from $1 to $10 million, and you can get financing pretty reasonably for that, right? But there is a massive gap, right? So $10 million, the next type of movie that you can make and get funding for is around $50 million.
I was about to say 40, 50, yeah.
And
I always thought the gap was like 10 to 100. I didn't know.
And anything in between from $10 to $50 million is a no man's land for movies. They do not make movies from $10 to $50 million.
Correct.
With this one exception. You have a movie like what's coming out with Glass. This movie, they're going to they let's say that they give them the standard $10 million to make this movie, right? Mm-hmm. The only thing that makes this movie a 20, 30, 35, probably $35 million movie, which is the No Man's Land, is because they have the stars.
Salaries, yeah.
So they have to pay their 3 stars that money. And so that gets you into the No Man's Land, but that is also like, you know, the difference between a $10 million movie and a $10 million movie with Nicole Kidman in it is that you're paying Nicole Kidman $10 million to be in your movie. And so that's basically what's going to happen with this. It's not like it's going to be a gigantic, it won't be a massive special effects laden movie. It's going to be the same level of Split, but it's going to cost more just because of your talent that is on set, and no one will blink at it because, you know, having Bruce Willis and Samuel L. Jackson in your movie is going to put more butts in seats.
And as we're talking about Split, something I want you guys to keep in mind, but Casey, the female lead from this movie, she's confirmed to be in Glass. So let's keep that in mind, and then we'll maybe try to guess which way she's going to go when Glass comes around.
So here's a quote from Jason Blum about Glass. The budget is more traditional by Hollywood standards, a very low budget, but it's not $5 million.
Right. Yes, that would make sense.
So let's get into it. I thought this movie started out in kind of a weird place that I didn't expect it to.
Well, I even want to talk a little bit about the marketing for this movie.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, please.
Because this movie was marketed kind of like a horror movie, like not necessarily a slasher, a little bit more highbrow, not a supernatural horror movie.
It's
but
more
really
thriller horror than slasher.
But
horror.
coming from
Girls
Blumhouse,
in peril with a serial killer is kind of what it looks like.
Right.
These girls get kidnapped. These teenage girls, kind of typical slasher fic, you know, girls over 18 so that they can show a little skin, but they're playing under 18, so you feel creepy showing too much skin. They get kidnapped by a deranged lunatic, and they're in peril, and how will they escape? You know, you expect this to be a somewhat traditional Last Girl type movie starring James McAvoy and directed by M. Night Shyamalan, so you have maybe you're holding it to some higher standards. But they really did something weird. Like they undersold this movie in the marketing, you know, because it wouldn't work if you knew what it was.
Oh, right? Yeah.
But at the same time, they managed to give you something different than what they marketed while also giving you exactly what they marketed. Do I sound like a lunatic when I say that?
No.
No. It
like
makes
if this
perfect
movie,
sense.
if this movie's 2 hours long, which I think is about what it clocks in at, they give you an hour and a half of exactly what they promised you, and then they give you something you had no idea you were going to get. And it works for me.
Yes.
It clocks in at the 117 minutes. So, yeah, just under 2.
Yeah, three minutes under 2 hours. But they honestly give you 90 minutes of exactly what you've signed up for, and then they give you a little bit extra to take your breath.
And then they give you more.
And then
Yeah.
in the last couple of seconds, so here's a little story. My brother had not seen this movie, and my dad had not seen the movie, but my dad is an avid movie collector and had actually bought the Blu-ray when it first came out. And as the man does, he way overbuys movies that, you know, that he can't watch in the amount of time.
That sounds familiar.
It doesn't it, though? you think I got it from someplace. So my brother calls up and just goes, "Do you have Split?" I go, "No, I don't have it, but Dad has it." And I go, "You need to go see him, and you two need to watch this movie." And because neither of them had heard anything, didn't know any of the spoilers or nothing.
Oh, what a wonderful way to see this movie.
Am I right? So I was just like, so I got in there. We all watched the thing again, or I watched it again. They watched it for the first time. And just as everything is starting to finish up and everything, you know, as movies do, you wind down, especially at home. You know, you kind of get up and you start moving, and you're like, well, I'm going to go to the bathroom or whatever. My dad gets up and he starts to walk down, like, towards the hallway. And I'm like, no. I literally kind of pushed my old man, and I go, no. I'm pointing at him like,
you watch
it.
this.
I'm like, you watch it. You're about to miss the biggest part that makes you go, that blows your brain out. And he watched it and he's like, oh, and I'm just like, this is what I'm trying to tell you. Oh. I mean, I kept going, dude, you have to watch this. I'm telling you, this is right up your alley. My dad's a comic book guy since the 60s. I'm like, watch it, man.
Uh-huh.
So
and this is a movie you
gotta stay
definitely
in the
want to
end.
watch twice. You want to watch it and have you get caught off guard. Then you want to watch it again and see how it makes sense when you know what it is.
And all the puzzle
I don't know,
pieces, for sure.
I don't think there are that many puzzles. This isn't like The Sixth Sense in that regard.
I don't
but
think
it's,
it's
the
not
whole
that-
train station scene makes so much more sense when you watch it the second
And
time.
and that's exactly what I want to talk about too, is once he's at the train station, I don't know if you noticed this or not, the soundtrack changes. Because now they start using they're using the soundtrack from Unbreakable.
The Unbreakable
in
song
that.
comes in there, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally missed that.
And you do.
I didn't catch it until the third viewing either, where I was like, oh, holy crap, that's Unbreakable. That's the Unbreakable soundtrack.
And something I haven't done that I probably should have done is watched Unbreakable and Split back to back. I think I could have picked up a lot doing that too. I don't know why I never thought of that.
And
Man, that's a lot of staring off into the middle distance. You're watching a lot of that.
So something I'll say about
gotten full.
Something I'll say about watching this movie the third time, because the first time you don't know what you're getting and you're kind of following it and you're curious, and it does a good job of keeping you involved in a deliberately paced movie. The second time you know where it's going, so you're looking to see how it all makes sense. The third time, when I know where it's going, I'm kind of in a hurry to get to what I call the good part. You know what I mean? Like I'm really wanting to just rush right along. I would just want to rush straight to the train station when I watch it the third time.
Right.
But I think I may have maybe the words weren't the best when I said pieces of the puzzle, because I don't mean that it's like something to be solved per se. Maybe more brush of a stroke on a canvas, if you will. Because if you look back, even at the initial first scene there in the car, there is a very unbreakable movement of the camera, going from the back seat to the front seat, and
You're right.
It's very, very unbreakable. So you see tiny little things like that sprinkled throughout here that are just tiny little
but
clues.
I think
that you
that
didn't
would
know.
also be easy for somebody to think that's just a Shyamalan technique, and you know what I mean. Like that's
exactly. That's why
on
the first time, that's why it looks like, oh, that's just a Shyamalan sort of thing. But and while it certainly may be, it's also very parallel to what was the first shots in Unbreakable.
And the other part, because I hadn't seen Split in a year and a half, 2 years. The other part that I had forgotten about is where they are.
Oh, under the zoo, you mean?
Yes, I had completely forgotten that they were in the zoo.
And I had an opposite reaction where I was surprised how late in the movie they revealed that. Like I kind of had a memory that we knew they were in a zoo earlier than what we did.
Right. And here, this is the thing that I took away from the third viewing the most, though. If you don't think that James McAvoy is a really, really terrific actor, watch this movie. He is so amazing in this movie.
He's ridiculously good. And what I do is I'm sitting here and watching it, and in order, it's easy enough to recognize that James McAvoy is just ludicrously talented, and I think shamefully completely overlooked for this performance, right? I mean, no nominations of any significance, but just try to imagine this role by an actor who doesn't know their own limits. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know who the right person is I'm trying to think of, but somebody like maybe Travolta or Nick Cage, who think that they're better than they are doing this role.
Yeah, I totally agree. And you know what's a pretty good parallel to this is Ryan Reynolds. Ryan Reynolds knows exactly who he is, but there was a couple of years there where he was trying to be a capital A actor, and with mixed success.
Man, imagine if you made McAvoy Deadpool and Ryan Reynolds The Horde. Both movies just suck all of a sudden.
Yes,
very different.
Totally
films.
agree.
It's funny because some of now I'll be honest, the DVD features and stuff on Split are not very good. They're very electronic press kit kind of stuff, but they're a little bit above the normal EPK. Just like we had a great time. It's a little bit deeper than that, but not by a whole heck of a lot. But they do talk about McAvoy and how with the choice of him, he's like, they were like, there's just not a lot of people who can really do this off. You may find people that can do 3 characters or something, but to keep it up to this sort of amount and actually have you buy everything that's kind of going on, it takes a big deal.
The thing that looked the most difficult to me, and, me saying this looks difficult is like me saying that a stunt pilot flying a plane looks difficult. I don't know enough to know really what's hard and what's easy. But when he is starting to lose it, like he's playing Dennis, pretending to be Barry, and he's starting to lose it a little bit and going from Dennis to Barry, back to Dennis, then back to Barry, then he finally just gives up and becomes Dennis. Like, that whole back and forth just blew me away that he could do that.
Well, I will tell you, Bruce, you know more than you think, because that is the hardest thing in the world to do. When you're for the very limited amount of time that I've had to do that, because I've had to do that before, where I'm a character pretending to be another character. To get that correct in your head, you have to categorize, like you have to put everything in boxes, and you have to know enough about your own performance versus who the character is to change that performance so that it's a different character altogether. And
this seems like something that Daniel Day-Lewis couldn't do, because he's one of those guys, he has to go in character and stay in character for 6 months.
Yes.
And if he has to change character 3 times in a scene, what does that guy do? And he's considered one of the finest actors alive. Yeah. But I don't know that he pulls this technique off.
Well, I'll tell you who is brilliant at this, is of a character being another character. And you're going to laugh, but Mel Blanc was
unbelievable. No, unbelievable.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Unreal. When he, the thing I'm thinking about specifically is there's that one Looney Tune short where Bugs Bunny thinks he's Elmer Fudd and Elmer Fudd thinks he's Bugs Bunny. Getting that straight in your head, I can't even imagine how difficult that must have been to perform.
I like to give people this easy exercise. Well, it's not an easy exercise. The idea is easy, but it's difficult to pull off. Do an impression. Now do that person that you're impersonating someone else.
Right.
That's tough to do.
I was over my head with do an impression.
But
one thing I would say, if I were cast as the Horde, I could play all 23 personalities equally well.
And while we're talking about performance, because McAvoy is just, he is top of game, just fantastic at this role. Because the person who I think also does an amazing job is Anya Taylor-Joy, because
that's Casey.
Yes, she has to be. Her performance needs to be grounded enough to where it adds to McAvoy's performance. So if she is not as good an actor, the McAvoy performance looks ridiculous.
And she also does a good job. Once again, it's not exactly the same thing McAvoy does, but she does a good job of playing a person who's scared, pretending not to be scared, talking to the little boy. You know what I mean? Like, she does have to take it a couple levels. She's good, man. She does a good job. It's easy to be overshadowed by what McAvoy's doing.
Well, yeah, man. But you know what I think of all the time when it comes to this kind of thing, because McAvoy's just eating scenery and just has everybody's lunch in this movie. I always think of Tom Cruise in Rain Man. Dustin Hoffman has the easy job in Rain Man.
Mm-hmm.
It's Tom Cruise who has the difficult position, because he's got to be a normal person and he's Tom Cruise. So,
and he has to play Dustin Hoffman's older brother, which is not an easy thing for Tom Cruise to do.
Exactly. So, when Hoffman's performance doesn't work if Cruise is terrible in that role. And it's the same thing here, where, if Anya Taylor-Joy is bad as Casey, we don't believe James McAvoy's performance nearly as much. And so these two people together, and they work really, really well together, makes this script and this movie just fly when you're watching it.
Wapner.
And like I said before, she is, I don't know when we want to talk more about her character and her character's arc, but she is going to be in Glass. And I'm kind of curious which way she's going to go. Like, is she going to be a little Harley Quinn, Stockholm Syndrome? Is she maybe going to relate to the Horde now, or is she going to hate him and want to help Unbreakable hunt him down? Like, I don't know which way that character is going to go. I could see her going either way. What do you guys think?
I think that's an excellent question, man, because, you know, at the end of the movie, when the Horde says, oh, you aren't like everyone else, you have been broken and you've mended yourself. That might ingratiate her to him. So that's an excellent point. I would say, though, just because, you know, I would imagine that she is probably actually, there's your twist. If I am a betting man, but I don't because betting is illegal in North Carolina, I would bet that Anna Taylor-Joy is the twist in this movie, where you
kind of like in this one of the Saw movies did that, where the former victim of Jigsaw was running around with the victims in the new movie, and then in the end it was revealed she was working with Jigsaw.
Well,
that kind of thing.
I would put money on that is the twist, is that you think she's working on the side of angels and she's actually working with the Horde.
Here's my bet for the twist. Betty Buckley didn't die in this movie, and she shows up at the end to help capture the Horde.
Because
she is in the trailers.
Yeah, but it could be flashbacks or it could be hallucinations. But I think
no, man. In the trailer, she's standing next to David Dunn's kid, and it's her, and it's Mr. Glass's mom.
Can I say I only watched the first maybe 30 seconds in the trailer, and I closed my eyes and ears afterwards? I'm like, no, I don't want to know. Just shut up. Just like I did with this movie. Just like I did with this movie.
I don't think Wikipedia has her listed in the cast like they do everybody else, so I don't know what that means.
Oh wow.
So I don't know what that means. I've kind of seen the Comic-Con trailer, but didn't really watch it with both eyes, so to speak. It was like on while I was doing something else. So I didn't recognize Betty Buckley in the trailer. I know they have Sarah Paulson in it. Is that her name, Sarah Paulson?
Correct.
Yeah. But here's something I want to say. As far as secret sequels go, and I don't know if that's I think it's a great term for this movie. This movie's like the opposite of a backdoor pilot, the secret sequel. This is much better than 10 Cloverfield Lane, which really wasn't a secret. I mean, it's got Cloverfield Lane in the name.
Right.
But still, it kind of presented itself to do what this movie did. And it's strange because there's like a similar parallel of the woman who's been abducted and all that kind of thing. But, man, I just think that Split does such a better job than 10 Cloverfield Lane. And I didn't dislike 10 Cloverfield Lane. It's just I know we talked about it maybe in the last week or two, so I'm bringing it up.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. Like the secret sequel. Because another really weird secret sequel is that Kurt Russell movie Soldier, where it took place in the same universe as Blade Runner.
That's such a secret. I didn't even know about it till just now.
Oh yeah. It takes place in the same universe as Blade Runner. Why? Why is that movie in Blade Runner world? But it is.
But if 10 Cloverfield Lane had been called something else, I don't know that people would have realized it was a secret sequel to Cloverfield. Like they would have just been like, oh, so aliens are invading. You know?
I will tell you, man, when I watched 10 Cloverfield Lane with Lindsay, and we both very, very, very much enjoy that movie. It's a terrific movie. She was out the last 10 minutes of that movie. She's like, well, okay, this is stupid. I'm leaving.
I get it.
And she left.
And, I was really into Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt about the time I saw 10 Cloverfield Lane. So imagine that in a shared universe.
Basic same premise. But to me, the cool part about this movie is that Shyamalan, who throughout the majority of his career known for the twists and everything, and you figure while watching the trailer and everything that the twist is maybe this thing is actually real or maybe it's not real. So that that's where your brain goes into the sort of twist department, is how does this relate to real life or whatever. And the twist is you were watching a sequel to a movie that you didn't even know that you were watching. And
yeah,
not only that,
that's the twist. And that's what's so awesome to see that move.
The marketing of Split isn't necessarily going to bring in diehard Unbreakable fans. Like when I was in the movie theater, and I know I've told this story twice, but I'm going to tell it again. At the end of the movie, there's this one guy in my theater that said, what's Kevin Costner doing here?
I love that. I love that story.
I want to go home with this guy and just pick his brain. Just be like, what's it like to be you?
What a great
It's in the same
story.
universe as Waterworld.
So that guy doesn't understand anything that happens. Oh, I love it so much.
So good.
Oh, that's so
There
good.
were other people that were wondering, like, what's up with that? Who's Mr. Glass? What? I guess they're going to make a sequel.
Yeah, there were
I mean,
people
there
that were
people
scratching
having
their
that
heads.
conversation.
So good.
You have to think how many, like, in the high school demographic, like, let's say 16 to 22 really like these girl in peril, you know, the people that see Blumhouse movies tend to skew young. Is that a fair thing to say, Adam?
I would say so, yeah.
So
Well,
there are a lot of people that would have been, let's say, maybe 4 or 5 years old when Unbreakable was like a thing.
Well, I'll tell you, like I've kind of hipped into this very recently, and I didn't understand this about people's viewing habits because I just never cared previously.
You don't like people, we get it.
It is that, you know, the one thing that breaches the divide, at least in my house, you know, Lindsay has a completely different world that she watches. You know, she's into reality shows, she's into like true crime and stuff like that. I'm not into any of that stuff. But the one thing that if we're going to see a movie that we can both agree on are thrillers and horror, not slasher movies and not gore, like, you know, like gore movies, but thrillers and horror thriller movies. Like that's something we can both agree on, and that's probably generally why a lot of younger people are watching those movies, because it's something that both parties can agree on.
Yeah, I found out in the early days of my marriage that Eraserhead was not one of those things that my wife and I could enjoy.
Listen,
Definitely not.
Eraserhead shouldn't be anything that anyone has to watch. I said it. David Lynch, overrated.
David Lynch can make some great movies, but to me, that is not one of them.
I would say it was around circa 2004 when Netflix still sent you the DVDs in the mail and you had to wait 3 days for it. And my wife took away my Netflix movie choosing privileges for a long time after Eraserhead.
As right, well, she should.
You know, and I had just recently come to that conclusion. That's why a lot of young people are watching horror movies, is because it's something that both men and women can agree on.
Well, yeah,
you know,
it's just like and it's the old classic, and it sounds so stupid and corny and outdated and stuff like that, but it's true. You still have that, like, you know, hoping she'll jump and kind of grab your arm or something like that, and like, oh no, hold on, baby, don't worry about that.
Pretty much, you're right. You have like horror movies and things like Gilmore Girls that appeal universally.
That's all they like. Gilmore Girls and horror movies. That's all the ladies like.
That's probably 90% of what my wife and I have watched together in the past 3 years is either Gilmore Girls, which, you know, I talked her into watching it with me, or the horror movies.
I like that she watches it instead of Bruce going, listen, I like this for the witty repartee. Bruce just goes, no, honey, you're going to love this. Watch this Gilmore Girls.
Like, let me tell you what happened this week, right? So last week with Teen Titans Go to the Movies, Lindsay, not so hot. I'm going to see that. Yeah, shocking.
Oh, man, my wife loved it.
But when I was talking about Split, that we were going to be reviewing Split, she was totally on board. She's seen it already and she wanted to see it again. That never happens.
It's a good sign.
Ever. And so that's one of the things that I think that Shyamalan gets right with these movies, because and it's the thing that I constantly harp on about entry point movies for like superhero movies, is that you need to have a couple of entry point things to make your loved ones like the things that you like. And you know, like Why the Last Man coming out is going to be a big deal in this house, because she's going to be totally on board for that. And like, she loves Preacher. She likes
Lock and Key. Listen to me, Sean. Lock and Key on Netflix will be right up her alley, I bet.
Fella, I am totally on board too. I like that's a great that is a great one to pick as well.
Listen, I'd like to like the program, but I only like things that are done by the offspring of well-talented people. Is that?
But you know, having these things to as entry points, and Unbreakable and now Split, these movies are great entry points, because she cannot wait to see Glass in January, and neither can I. It's gonna be awesome.
That is a good question, though, man. Unbreakable and Split are great entry-level movies, like you say, because it's almost like you're sneaking the superhero up on people.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard for me to think of a whole lot of other options. I think in the very late 90s, early 2000s. Blade worked real well for that. I think there are a ton of people that had no idea that was a comic book.
Right.
But it's hard to really think of stuff to sneak up on people because that's 80% of the marketing now for a big comic book movie, whereas they used to downplay that. Now that's where they depend on some automatic fandom to open the movie.
Well, I can tell you what they are just because I know it from my personal life. First season of Daredevil, great entry point into that universe. First season of Jessica Jones, another great entry point for people.
American Splendor.
Right, but that doesn't get you into the superhero.
That gets you into nothing.
Superhero
I was being
stuff.
facetious. That's like I Kill Giants. Once again, easy to get people to watch the movie. As if they expect any other superhero movie to be like that, they're in for a hurting.
I mean, those are the ones that just off the top of my head that I can think of. But for years and years, when it came to, look, I want my loved ones to like the things that I love. The first thing that I would hand them when they're like, okay, give me a comic book to read. The first thing I would give them wasn't Preacher. It was Why the Last Man. And then if they were into that, then the next thing I would give them was Preacher. And, those are good entry points into comics.
Yeah, for comics, for me, it's Morning Glories and Lock and Key. Those are ones that will bring a lot of people over to realizing, oh, there's more to comics than I thought.
I just hand him an issue of All Pro. Well, the issue of All Pro. Hey, it's got Spider-Man in it.
I start him off with like Spawn issue 36. Just throw him in the fire.
Oh,
not
36. I'll be honest, I know that covered everything in my mind, and I'm going to say no to that one. Honestly, I'd say anything before then would actually be better.
Yes, man. I picked 36 for a reason.
That's where it goes off the rails for me. And I was like, that's the point where I'm like, I'm not reading this no more.
You had almost 3 good years of Spawn.
Yeah. I liked it for the longest of times.
Or anything that Liefeld did after Marvel, like all that indie stuff he did, the Youngbloods.
All of his, really the stuff that you need from him is all of the rip-off things. It's just like,
That's what I'm talking about. That's everything.
Well, you said Youngbloods, and that's not really.
It kind of is.
It's sort of.
Go back and look at
but
it.
it's not as bad as it's not as blatant as some of the other things that he did. Where it's just like, I'm gonna change 3 things, and guess what? New character. Now, granted, he's got quite the history of that. Well, what are you gonna do?
Oh man, but back on the tracks here. One thing I think I've already answered this question, but one thing I have to ask myself is, how would I feel about this movie if it was just standing on its own? Like if it didn't have that last little bit after it says split at the end, and then we see Bruce Willis in the diner. Even without that, this movie stands up pretty good. I think
it does.
I think it survives well as like it's its own thing.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, it's why the twist works for this movie, is that you don't need it to enjoy the movie. It makes it better. It's kind of that first Iron Man movie twist at the end of Iron Man, where you don't need Nick Cage to walk in. Nick Fury, sorry. You don't need Nick Fury to walk in and say, "I'm starting."
I'd like to get you on the Avengers, eh?
Oh.
Well, man,
to start the Avengers initiative to make that movie great, but it does make it better.
And that's why I always said that for me, The Sixth Sense was a little overrated because you can only enjoy it once. You take away the twist, you take away the movie.
But see, but at least again, that's another brushstrokes argument that I'll make there. And you can go back and watch all the points where you think, oh, but he did this, and what you thought he did not do.
Okay, now I don't want to be that guy, Adam. I hate being that guy because that's you, Adam. You're that guy.
Yes.
But first time ever that I saw Sixth Sense, no idea what I was watching, no spoilers. I figured it out before the end, and then it just seemed to drone on. I was like, get there already.
Oh.
And that's why I guess I've never liked that movie.
And that was weird because, like, I eschewed that film. I didn't want to watch it because it was so popular. I know that sounds like, hey,
that doesn't sound like you at all.
Everybody really liked it, and I'm just like, I'm going to watch Stir of Echoes, which I'm sorry, I do like Stir of Echoes. I think that's a good film too.
Oh, man. I avoided Titanic until this calendar year.
Wow.
How did you do that?
Determination, my friend. Sheer determination.
Listen, I applaud you for that. Good job.
Well, but then I felt dirty once I finally watched it. But I was justified. I hadn't missed a thing all those years.
He said they were just like, this is highest grossing for the longest time? Yeah, all right, sure. But yeah, I think taking away that the little end there still doesn't. It takes zero away. And like I said, my dad was walking out of the room satisfied with the good film that he had just seen, and I'm like, no, get back in there. And
Right.
oh, yeah, well, it's even better than I thought that it was, and I already thought it was good.
And I also would have been disappointed if we didn't have just a touch of supernatural to his transformation. You know, he is maybe bulletproof. You know, it looks like he does become bulletproof. He does transcend. We do see him climbing the wall like Spider-Man. And but what I was really hoping the first time I watched Split was that he would like unhinge his jaw and just swallow those girls whole, because he kept saying he was going to eat
that'd
the
be
girls.
awesome.
Like I wanted something just a little too much over the top, but he just kind of devoured them pretty normally.
Now,
But that's a great line, right? I mean, you know, that's another thing I seem to talk about all the time is what is the line too far?
Yeah, and I love
Eating
crossing
them.
that line. That's my problem.
I think eating them is the answer. But now this is an interesting thing. We'll, excuse me, start to kind of wrap this episode up and everything. But I just kind of want to get you guys' thoughts on this. This show had a little bit of a controversy, if you will, because it is dealing with something that is a real condition, multiple identity disorder.
Let's back up a little bit. I know the controversy you're talking about, and it's a legitimate complaint, but comic books have dealt with psychopaths. You know, like what is the Joker if not a deeply, deeply mentally ill person?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
You know, he's criminally insane. He's psychopathic, and he is an ill-defined kind of psychopathic, which I think does more harm than a specific diagnosis. Like with the Joker, you just say, oh, he's crazy, quote unmarked crazy. So anybody now who takes Zoloft feels like they're being stigmatized by what the Joker does in a movie. Here they use a specific diagnosis, and they get it right. They call it DID, dissociative identity disorder, rather than what movies love to call it multiple personality, split personality, which is the inspiration for the name. Some places will even erroneously call it schizophrenia, which is a totally different condition, or heaven help us, a few folks think that bipolar is dissociative identity disorder. Is it a real thing? You might be surprised to know that not all psychiatrists are convinced that it exists as distinctly as the media thinks it does. Can I tell a weird story about my own medical school experience?
Okay.
I had this psychiatry professor, and he was a guy who was like all about dissociative identity disorder. Like that is what his career was about. And as a result, every patient that came to see him was diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder. And he was really into like hypnotizing people and stuff. Like he wanted to hypnotize, like he did this attempt at mass hypnosis of about 20 medical students at once.
Oh, boy.
You know, what is hypnosis? I don't know. Was I hypnotized? I'm pretty sure I wasn't, unless I've been hypnotized every time I get bored, which maybe I was. I don't know. But this story has a sad ending because that guy is in prison for murder now. I'm not lying. This is one of my medical school psychiatry attendings who, you know, was really into dissociative identity disorder. All of his colleagues thought he was nuts, and I guess he proved them right because he murdered the husband of one of his patients with whom he was having an affair, and now he's doing life in prison without parole, I think, in Ohio.
That is an M Night Shyamalan type ending.
Okay.
Yeah, man, like this is like a Harley Quinn Joker kind of guy. Like I had a comic book supervillain as a medical school professor.
Wow.
Oh. He was at Betty Buckley, which, by the way, I also don't think that she gets enough credit in this film. She's really good, and she is also very much kind of the secondary villain, if you will, because she knows he's very, very dangerous, and yet she so wants to prove her point and everything that she'll just like kind of still let him go a little bit far more free than he should.
She makes it about her success or failure and not the patient's.
I thought that was a great little twist in there that you know.
But anyway, yeah, it did bring some. I don't know, some protest from advocates for folks with mental health issues, but I don't know that this movie necessarily did the worst wrong it could do. And it also, you know, nobody thinks that dissociative identity disorder gives you superpowers either. I mean, once you start climbing on walls and getting super strength and bulletproof and stuff, I think it's fair to say that you could always just say he was misdiagnosed with that condition.
But again,
you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sure. Again, something that's interesting that they kind of talked about in the little EPK thing there and everything was talking about like Shyamalan kind of really going, hey, we know that this is kind of a thing. He's like, I just went one step further because there have been some reports and stuff with these multiple dissociative identities that. One can have high blood pressure. We see it in this film. One can have diabetes or whatever, and that the body can help manifest things.
High blood pressure, yes. High blood pressure, yes. Diabetes, probably no.
Again, this is all...
regrowing optical nerves, definitely no.
Yeah,
they talk about.
But that's kind of the interesting idea, and like so, Shyamalan's going. Well, I'm thinking one more thing. If someone had extraterrestrial powers or something, would that be able to manifest itself like these other things could supposedly manifest as well?
I feel like it was as medically accurate as Mr. Glass or Unbreakable's medical conditions were. And then I would also say that out of all this, we have a person with a very cinematic depiction of dissociative identity disorder who becomes bulletproof, super strong, and can climb walls. But the most unbelievable thing was the clarity of that Skype connection in Paris when she was doing that medical conference.
Unbelievable. We got two cans together for this podcast, and they're over here just like high definition video on a screen that's 50 feet tall, and they're like, "Oh, this is good. This lady sounds like she's got a lot of great information here. Zero lag, eh?" Must have been. That...
I mean, I assume that M Night Shyamalan has never actually used Skype. That's the only thing I could consider because that was just ridiculous.
Yeah, you got to have that freeze up every now and then, and maybe a murderer come in the background or something. That's what they do in horror films.
Yeah, exactly.
That new Unfriended thing, which is garbage, by the way. Don't go watch that, anybody. It's terrible. Well, let's get down to it because, we talk a lot about, how this is sort of like comic books and all these sort of other things. But what we really need to find out is how this movie relates to one Sylvester Stallone.
Thank you, Adam. I have a prepared statement.
Oh.
I've spoken about the process of putting together the Stallone connection before on this show because in my opinion, finding a narrative for this bit is the most important part because it makes things interesting. I don't achieve that goal each week, and for that, HMPers, I'm sorry. I'm not sorry about the connection this week, however, because this week's is awesome. If I were lazy or just unable to find a good connection for the movie split, I would have gone with Bruce Willis, who's had a dust-up or two with Stallone in his time. We've spoken about those troubles in the past because this week I found someone else, and this week's story is a story of hubris. Sharon Pinkenson is listed as the film commissioner on Split, and when you go to the Philadelphia Film Commission website, you'll find the hubris-filled gold that is Sharon Pinkenson's bio. Don't take my word for it. Let's let the lady speak for herself. I start my quote. Over 2 decades ago, one wardrobe stylist had an ambitious dream to see her beloved hometown become the movie metropolis she always knew it could be. Now, 25 years later, and after more than $5 billion of economic impact to the southeastern Philadelphia region, the GPFO, which stands for Greater Philadelphia Film Office, by the way, Executive Director Sharon Pinkenson has successfully elevated the GPFO from the little-known permit office it once was to one of the most well-respected film commissions in the industry. In doing so, Sharon has cemented Philadelphia's reputation as one of the best media production centers in the country. Sharon was instrumental in the passage of the Pennsylvania Film Production Tax Credit Program that continues to be one of the most sustainable incentive programs in the industry, end quote. Thank you, Sharon. Now, for those of you who weren't paying attention, let's break this down, and let's give Sharon Pinkenson the benefit of the doubt, and let's say that she, and she alone, as she claims in her bio, is responsible for the film industry in Philadelphia being what it is today. What that means, Sharon, what you are claiming, Sharon, is that you are responsible for every M. Night Shyamalan movie that's ever been made in and around Philadelphia.
Which is pretty much all of them.
You don't claim that you spearheaded a project and many other people helped you. You claim it was you and just you who made Philadelphia a filming destination. According to you, it was not the writer and director of movies that have grossed over $3 billion that brought movies to Philadelphia. It was actually you who brought the movie Philadelphia to Philadelphia. That also means, Sharon, that the first and second Rocky movies that were shot over 30 years ago had nothing to do with filmmakers being comfortable with shooting in a location like your beloved city. And I would think that you would see the hubris of the bio that you wrote because you yourself, Sharon, were the film commissioner on the movie Apollo, which stars West Philadelphia's second favorite son, Sylvester Stallone. Now, in a few months, there's going to be another installment of Apollo, and we'll see if all the goodwill built up for Stallone through the first movie will be crushed under a cash grab, or if Stallone has written yet another great movie. And we'll find out soon enough, because Sharon Pinkinson could probably use some of that Stallone later-day humility. And I was even thinking about starting a fan page for Sharon Pinkinson, but let's be honest with ourselves. There's probably already a Sharon Pinkinson fan page, and it was built by Sharon Pinkinson. And there you have it, HMPers, this week's Stallone Connection. Now, Mr. Glass and Mr. Glass's mom, let's review Split, because what else are we going to review? We've been talking about it for an hour now.
Bruce, if you watch your comic book, you gotta go outside.
Yeah, I like it, man. I like it. In a way, I feel like after a few years go by, I'm always going to look back at Split, and I'm going to think about it in relationship to Unbreakable and Glass more than I'll think of Split in its own right. And that's probably not fair because the movie's enjoyable and well acting and intriguing, and we've all agreed that it serves well on its own. But in my mind, it's going to end up serving a very specific function to kind of bridge the Unbreakable story arc. And that's not fair to the movie. I think it works great on its own, and because of that, I'm going to give it a Tim Drake. But I'm probably not going to think of it as often as I think of Unbreakable and Glass in the future.
Fair enough. Keenan?
So I love Split. As of this moment right now, as we're speaking, I love this movie. I think it is everything that's great. I love that it's an entry point movie. I like that anyone can enjoy this movie. For me, it is a Dick Grayson. However, there is going to be an asterisk on the back half of that Dick Grayson, and here is why. You have now made 2 movies. You've made 3, but the third one hasn't come out yet. If that third movie doesn't stick the landing, then all of this will be for naught. All of that brilliant marketing that went into Split, all of the reclamation project of M Night Shyamalan, none of that is going to matter if Glass is a terrible movie. I really, really, really hope it isn't, because I really want to like these movies as much as I do right now. And so if they don't stick the landing, I'm taking away my Dick Grayson.
Hey,
but as of right now, it is a Dick Grayson.
That's the reason nobody talks about The Godfather and Godfather 2 anymore, is that third entry just ruined the whole franchise.
But you make an excellent point, but you know what my point is, Leslie.
I do.
No, I agree with that. And by the way, the cool thing is another bit of stuff that was kind of staring us in the face the whole time. If you look at the poster for Split, it's kind of just like a white sort of version of what the Unbreakable poster kind of was. So again, more stuff that's just kind of staring you in the face the whole time, and we don't even know it. And it's for things like that I'm going to go along. I'm with Bruce. I'm kind of right here in the middle, because I'm really going to go a super high Tim Drake on this one. Very, very good. Enjoyed it. I've seen it 3 times as well. And it just works. Without the great performances from everyone in this thing goes nuts. And just, right down to the bottom of the barrel with a lot of other very disposable $10 million, horror thriller movies and stuff. But it really shows that when you have the right talent, talent can be everything that gets you to where you need to go. Instead of giving, Shyamalan $100 million, we give him 10, and he puts out 2 really great movies and maybe a third one coming around the corner. So, sometimes it just helps to go, welcome back, Frank, get rid of all the crazy machinery and stuff and just go back to, living in an apartment and just, out of a truck.
I love that term. We're gonna welcome back Frank. What a great term.
So that's it, everybody. Good times. So if you enjoyed Unbreakable, and you've gotten to the end of this, now you know. So next week, everybody, we've got a little bit something different for you. We're going back to the world of animation, but Sean may not cut his wrist. Who knows? We're going to be doing. We did a Batman and Robin, which was an animated movie that they did based upon the 1966 Batman series. And just before Adam West left this planet, he recorded one more Batman cartoon, and we're going to be doing that one next week, Batman versus Two-Face, with old William Shatner there as Two-Face himself. So we'll be checking
Remember
that
that time William Shatner's people called me?
No.
You don't? Yeah, I even forwarded the voicemail to you to ask you if it sounded legit.
Oh,
I never heard back from him.
I remember that. It did sound a little sketchy. Oh, yeah, we're William Shatner's people as far as you're aware. Why did you say the far as you're aware? That seems like you're kind of pointing out that you're not. It seems like that's a tell. But now, the cool part is with this Batman versus Two-Face, chances are, if you're an Amazon Prime customer, you've already got access to this thing because it is on Prime Watch or whatever. They're naming it 5 different times all the time, but it's on Amazon streaming. So check that out there. We'll talk about that next week. But in the meantime, Bruce, do you have some sort of announcement or anything that earth-shattering that you can kind of let people in on?
I have a press release I'd like to share.
Oh, please.
If I can find it.
Nice.
Okay, here's the press release. Lost in the mists of time, homegrown British superheroes once entertained and enthralled millions of kids. Now the likes of Adam Eterno, Blake Edmonds, Thunderbolt the Avenger, and the Leopard from Lime Street are coming back to make summer 2018 blazing hot. The Vigilant will be a special one-shot title this August, which resurrects classic heroes from the Fleetway IPC comics of the 1970s, reborn and updated for a new generation to enjoy. Written by Simon Furman of the Transformers, with art by Simon Colby from Yeager and Judge Dredd, and other guest creators. That's me, guys. I'm one of the other guest creators. When the evil forces of Von Hoffman and Dr. Mesmer team up and pluck the immortal Adam Eterno from the winds of time, all of reality is under threat. Only the Vigilant, a mighty team composed of super beings, warlocks, warriors, and monsters, stand between civilization, spelled with an S because it's British, and the total chaos. Join the Leopard from Lime Street, Steel Commando, Dr. Sin, Pete's Pocket Army, Blake Edmonds, Yao, and Thunderbolt the Avenger on their premiere edition. Superheroes are something 2000 AD hasn't really done in the past, with a couple of exceptions. But this is the beginning of what we're dubbing the Rebellion verse, an interconnected world of superheroes, but with very British ethos and outlook. Available from newsagents in the United Kingdom on 15th August, The Vigilant will also be available to order from comic book stores through Diamond Distribution. So, folks, I wrote a 6-page story in The Vigilant, so now I am officially peers. I have officially rubbed shoulders with the likes of Grant Morrison, Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman, Mark Miller, Al Ewing, Dan Abnett, Garth Ennis, and Steve Dillon. Brian Boland. All these people.
You and Stan Lee, man, same podium.
No, Stan Lee was never there. I'm talking about the cool dudes who've worked in the world of 2000 AD.
Oh,
I am now one of them. So people go check it out. August 15th, The Vigilant. Vigilant. Links all over my Heroes and Villains Facebook page. Go ask your local comic book store August 15th for The Vigilant. You can order it online, I'm sure. But check it out, man. I have traditionally published. This isn't something where I brute forced my way to get my product out there like I do with my novels and my podcasts and stuff. This is something where someone contacted me, paid me to write something, and then they did the rest of the work. It's a major milestone for me. My first professional creative endeavor that wasn't entirely independently produced. So please, folks, check it out.
And you guys know that.
You know what the best part about this is, Bruce, is that whatever it is that you work on next, you can always put Bruce Leslie and then parenthetical, The Vigilant.
Exactly, man. I'm looking forward to it.
And as Bruce said there, it's all super British, and no one knows British like the people of West Virginia. I've always said it.
Hey, Wagner, who did History of Violence, was from Pennsylvania. So we're the two Yanks that work for 2000 AD.
I think it's some sort of quota that they have to have. Keenan, where's your novel being published?
No, I don't have a novel. No one has approached me for anything. You can find me on Twitter at Hero Movie Sean or at dogeatpod.com.
I'm just gonna go tell you to go to the library and get Gulliver's Travels. I didn't write it, but it's a classic book. So go get it, or so I hear. I don't know. My other podcast, The Film Find, at thefilmfind.com. New releases all this week, and of course, Preacher podcast. One Betty Buckley, who was in this movie, also in Preacher. And from what I'm hearing on the Twitters right now, as we're recording this, good episode. So check all that out. And that's it, Preacher podcast. That's it, everybody. Next week we are going to be talking Batman versus Two-Face. For Sean Keenan, Bruce Leslie, I'm Adam Portrais. Stay super, everybody.
Congratulations, Bruce. Seriously.
Thanks.
Bye, Marty and Evie.
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel. I focus on the pain, the only thing that's real. The needle tears a hole, the old familiar sting. Try to kill it all away, but I remember everything. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know goes away in the end, and you could have it all. My empire of dirt, I will let you down. I will make I wear this crown of thorns upon my liar's chair, full of broken thoughts I cannot repair. Beneath the stains of time, the feelings disappear. You are someone else. I am still right here. What have I become? My sweetest friend. Everyone I know